the overarching majority that are being killed are just civilians. And you're really seeing this shoot to kill policy just expand at a level that is so difficult for me to comprehend and understand.
Hi, mijn naam is Rinke Verkerk en vandaag spreek ik voor de correspondent met journalist Mariam Barghouti. Ik heb met Mariam gewerkt op de Westelijke Jordaanoever in maart, maar sindsdien is de situatie daar weer extreem geëscaleerd. Dus vandaar dit gesprek. So, Mariam, what's currently happening on the West Bank?
Well, what's happening in the West Bank is that Israeli settlers are pushing through with full force to fully take over the West Bank while at the same time annihilating Gaza. And it's not just the West Bank, it is also Jerusalem and what little remains of Palestinian towns within Israel. That is, Palestinians with Israeli citizenship are also facing this settler violence from the Israeli state, from the Israeli army, from armed Israelis. Really, it's just Israelis because they're all being and acting as settlers right now, trying to push Palestinians out. Israel tends to use any regional escalation as a smokescreen to continue its annexation project. The primary goal that Israel has and wants is to continue annexation. Everything else is used as a fig leaf or as a smokescreen. Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, who are leading, really, the annexation of the West Bank, began to push forward the violence that is happening here the moment Trump took office. They said now's the time to annex the West Bank. Now's the time to expand settlements, and now's the time to prove who dominates on this territory. So what we saw during the 12-day war with Iran is that the Israeli army and the Israeli government waged this state of emergency, and Israel has constantly been in a state of emergency. But what that means is that they closed down the villages around Palestine, around the West Bank, and that means you can't leave or enter. And if you try to pass, they will shoot you and kill you.
Yeah, the most poignant example for people may be that we were planning to have this conversation earlier, but we had to postpone because the army was raiding Ramallah, where you live, and they shot someone. And
they shot a kid.
A kid, and at 5:15 in the night, you sent me this text message, and you'd been awake all night, saying, "Can we postpone because it's been a horrible night, and I'm not up to it today." I think that's very telling.
Yeah, and
that's just another night.
It's just another night. The amount of people I speak with everywhere, all over the West Bank, they don't sleep. People don't sleep. They're afraid to sleep at night because they don't know what's going to happen. At least in the daytime, at least whatever happens, it's in broad daylight. You can get arrested, you can get shot at, settlers are attacking, and because all the villages are closed off from each other, people can't get to each other to help. So it's really each village and community on its own. And it's a very frightening scene. It's, everyone is trying to put on a brave face and they're trying to push back. But these like settlers they've lost it. Whatever little they've had in terms of heart and mind, they've lost it. All they see is a gun and a target right now. And just the future of Israel. That's why you keep hearing them say, "Am Israel Chai," the people of Israel live. It's just it's painfully robotic, the way they're behaving. Yeah. You're really seeing this shoot to kill policy just expand at a level that is so difficult for me to comprehend and understand. And it really shows that nobody is safe here. Absolutely nobody. That it's not just the army. It is armed Israeli settlers that were getting armed during the war on Gaza. The settler movement kept demanding arms from the U.S., from Europe, in the form of M16s, in the forms of new pistol guns, in the form of quad bikes. And what we're seeing now is they're being used against Palestinians. Settlers are literally coming out of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, going to the Palestinian villages, burning homes, and then carrying out shootings, just randomly shooting at Palestinian homes and sending, these paramilitia groups Israeli paramilitia groups in tandem to the army to just go and shoot at Palestinian homes. These are terrorist activities that are happening. And you need to understand, in the West Bank, there is no military, there is no form of protection. It has been demilitarized. There is no arms with Palestinians, especially that the armed resistance has been totally quelled by Israel. And the Palestinian Authority actually works with the Israeli regime.
Yeah, and every day homes get demolished in the north. So,
yes.
Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, cities like that in the north of the West Bank, they have been invaded. People have been displaced by the tens of thousands, and their homes are being demolished daily. So there is nothing to return to. Bedouin communities like in Masafariata are almost entirely extinguished. The world is still watching No Other Land. And, this documentary about it, feeling so shocked. But it's already everything they are trying to prevent in this documentary almost everything has already happened. Like people have been displaced. The Bedouin communities have had to leave. Yeah,
they're gone. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's like they're being forced to. I think the best way for me to have seen the displacement and dispossession in the West Bank is just how densely populated Ramallah is.
Yeah.
Ramallah is so densely populated now because everyone is trying to escape to Ramallah. And Ramallah is no longer safe either, though. The Israeli military is raiding every single night. It's arresting people left and right. So it's like it's a war zone without it getting the title of war.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, what's so important is because Israel kept saying in 1948, Palestinians just fled. They never explained what they were fleeing, right? Because any normal person that's trying to protect their family is going to flee from the guns and bullets and bombs. And that's what's happening now. The Palestinians are being forced by a bullet to just, seek life elsewhere. Just go. You either go or you die. These are the options Israel is giving.
And how much do you think there has been a lot of is there even an overview of how much annexation has taken place since March, since I was last there, and the annexation then was already insane?
So there isn't actually a official data set, and I'll tell you why. The records have surpassed anything we have ever seen in the last 2 decades. But literally, last night, 2 outposts were built in the West Bank. And in Kisan, this is a village in Beit Lahem, settlers went and just randomly started shooting at the homes of Palestinians to push them out so they can build even more, expand the outpost even more. Every week, I am getting reports of an outpost either being erected or expanded. And so it's truly madness what is happening.
So what happens if Palestinians try to defend themselves against these shooting sprees, as you've called them? What happens if they try to get through the checkpoints or through the gate?
There is no right. If you even just so much as get close to the settler, they can shoot you. Either they will shoot you or the soldier around them will shoot you. And at the same time, Israeli settlers historically, this is not just recently, but across the decades, whenever they attack Palestinians, they don't get indicted. They don't get charged. I think maybe less than 1% got indicted in terms of Palestinians pursuing legal action. And that's because that's the Israeli regime. It is a judicial, military, settler regime. So it operates on all these levels. And again, the international community continues to say this is disputed land, stripping Palestinians away from any right, real, powerful right in terms of practice and mobilizing and pursuing action against settlers. It's completely denied because it's always just disputed. Oh, we're going to keep talking about this until the Palestinians shot. And then they're still talking about it. And there is no way to protect yourself. You can't, there is no gun to shoot back. If you are yelling, help, help, who's going to come to help you? Ambulances are denied access to come and enter. The Palestinian Authority, as I have mentioned, is a collaborator with the Israeli regime, so they're not providing protection. And the international community it doesn't really recognize what is happening here.
Why don't we hear about this, you think, here in the Netherlands, in the West? Why is there no news on the West Bank?
Look how many tens of thousands of Palestinians had to be murdered and slaughtered in Gaza in every way imaginable and not imaginable for it to just make a dent in international media. And again, it comes to, well, then how could the West Bank, where, it's not even at the level of Gaza, right? So it makes it difficult for people to pursue it. But at the same time, there is a complete lack of sincere journalistic attention to the West Bank. And the West Bank is an exemplary case. You had a lot of international journalists say, let us go into Gaza, so we can cover and show what's happening. The West Bank is right here. Most of the headquarters of international correspondence is in Jerusalem, right? That is the 30-minute drive. With yellow-plated cars, that is Israeli-plated cars, they can come within 25 minutes to the West Bank and explore it. But there is no interest. There is still editorial censorship. And there is still, again, this mentality of, oh, it's disputed, or, oh, it's complicated, oh, it's just war. It's not framed as colonial. It is not framed as ethnic cleansing. It's just a conflict. It's just a war that is happening right now. It's not given its actual journalistic obligation that is required to cover here. And then the other thing is, I don't think the international community is ready to hear it. They don't want to hear what is happening. It's too painful, or they don't believe that it's happening, or that, okay, well, if this is happening, but we don't know what to do. So, journalists will avoid showing this kind of pain and suffering to their audiences. So it's not just the blame on journalists. I think that the part of the blackout is that people aren't demanding to know what is happening in this part of the world. People only demand to know what is happening when Israelis are being hurt, right?
Yeah, why? Why is that? Why does everybody want to hear about what happens to Israelis? But so why is the interest in what happens to Palestinians so, in comparison, so little?
Because Palestinians are constantly portrayed as these scary Arabs, these big bad Muslim terrorists. And it stems from the Islamophobia that has been very much embedded in the Western world, right? Especially in the global North. And then Israel has worked for decades to build this image and association as the European state in the Middle East. We're like you, we're like Europe, and we're amongst these savages that just want to kill us all. And that work over decades has created this pattern of thought within the international community. And this was primarily the role of media and journalists, international journalists that are so complicit in what is happening right now. And what happened is that you reach to the point of today. And again, people's first reaction is to sympathize with Israel and to be afraid of the Palestinian, or to, again, see the Palestinian as the monster without looking at the facts on the ground, actively refusing to look at the facts on the ground, right? And then at the same time, Palestinian testimony is rejected. It is it's called, oh, you're not objective because you're Palestinian. It's too emotional. Give me the real hard facts. So it's completely negated. It's not even looked at or considered. And I think that's why,
so you actually say that there is a lack of interest in international journalists, in the field of international journalism, to come and see on the West Bank for themselves. And then when the Palestinian local journalists like you report on it, then these reports aren't given the same weight as when an Israeli reporter or someone from the international community reports on it.
Yeah.
So you're like, you're double, you're muted twice.
Yeah, it's complete silencing. And when you're facing this much abuse, it's just a lot. It's a lot, right? I mean, we can explain it, but experiencing it is a lot.
Yeah. Can you say more about that?
It disgusts me. It truly, and I will be honest here, but it truly disgusts me that Palestinians not only have to survive bullets and bombs and starvation and a completely depraved regime that is willing to execute people in their own homes and then take those homes as their own. But to have to sit and explain this to the world again and again and again, and then explain the world's racism to itself, to explain to the international community, you've been brainwashed through media, right? But at the same time, you have to fight these media organizations so you can reach the audiences. And I feel very sad for, the state of the world in this regards of how we've created knowledge production and journalism, or the falling of journalism as seen through Palestine. But it is a lot. It's a lot to live it, and it's a lot to have to process something while you're enduring the trauma. You have to process it and reflect on it so you can explain it again to the international community that is responsible for your crime, like for the crimes that is happening, right?
Yeah, and then you have to also even address it in a way that it will be conceivable for this audience that is complicit in the destruction done to you. So you have to be the empathetic one, whereas actually that should be the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't want to make them too uncomfortable. And for the longest time, Palestinians, had to keep proving their humanity until now. You see in the West Bank, when we're covering the stories, we're trying to cover the little bits and pieces. Like, look, it's just a father and their toy so people can relate. He was just displaced from his home. Or we show a mother just being a mother, as any other mother would. Watching her house being destroyed and trying to save the last photograph she has of her slain son. And you're trying to relate that to the mothers of the world. And we're constantly having to humanize ourselves. But at the same time, we as Palestinians, there's anger, there's grief, and there's resentment that is not allowed to be shown in media. Because, again, you can't make it uncomfortable for the international community.
No, you have to be the perfect victims, as Mohammed Al-Kurd explained
has said, exactly,
in his book. Yeah, you have to stay likable, don't be a threat, or they'll believe that you brought this upon yourselves. Why do you think that has been so easy to install in the West, this frame? Why is it taken root so easily?
Because the West is the colonizing states, right? I mean, it's very, that tendency is because it has colonized. The United States is a colonial state. The Netherlands has its colonial past. France, Europe in general. So that's why it's the tendency is there. It's just how it is manipulated and used to allow for another colonization to happen, right? And it's, you want to attribute it to, the basic human tendency, but also, it's time for people to just do better. In this day and age, with this kind of information, like we are doing better. There's so many people doing better. And Palestinian journalists are documenting the details, we promise. But right now, it's really important to just do. The testimonies have been given and done and said in so many ways. And right now, I think it's important to focus on, what can be done rather than just, explaining what is happening, right?
Yeah. Do you see a change?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
I do.
Can you look happier when you talk about that. Do you want to say more?
I do. I see a lot of change happening, especially with the younger generations. The university students, again, they refused to take legacy media. They looked for the information themselves, built connections with each other and with the world. So yeah, I do see change. I see the change in the students because they have mobilized and went against the grain and searched for the information themselves. I see, new waves of media coming out as replacing legacy media. I see different policies happening, but if I'm honest, it's going to be unfortunate. It's going to come at a heavy cost because it's not happening with the urgency and the quickness and the scale it needs to happen. But the change is happening across the world.
Yeah, it's slow. And this is one of the things that's hard for me, and I can hardly comprehend how hard that must be for you, that the speed with which you can address the violence and the injustice committed. I mean, you cannot keep up with the pace.
And that's the strategy. This is Israel's strategy. It ensures it does it really quickly. And it's Naomi Klein has written about this, and I really appreciate her for that. But it's the shock and awe factor as well. You shock people, they're in awe for a minute, and then you shock them again. And that way you can pursue your project, your colonial project, before anyone can stop you or obstruct you. This is why Israel is going full force in annexation now, before everyone can process what is happening. Because again, unfortunately, news travels much slower than Israeli settlements do.
A lot of people ask me, like, what can we do from here? Like, they read the stories and they're like, what can we do? Where do you think the power lies?
Risk. The power lies in risk. And I think a lot of people think that mobilizing is safe, and it means, just like going out to the protests, but it's mobilizing is taking risks. It means you're going out of the familiar. And you're supposed to do that because that is the only way you can obstruct something that is going at full velocity. You have to just go, in front of it and try and block it. But what that means is that you're going to take a brunt of that. It means you're going to feel some of that, that wave of violence is going to hit you at a physical, emotional, mental level. And you need to be willing to take that risk on yourself, risk on your, hopefully it doesn't at a level that destroys, right? But if you do stand together and everyone just takes a bit of the wave of this violence, it helps. It helps
you divide it over more people. Yeah, you divide the load.
Kind of. It is standing in front of a weapons factory and saying, actually, no, we're not about this. We're not going to have you send weapons. It is blocking the ships that bring weapons to Israel. It is, the things like the Madeleine, the flotilla that went into Gaza. I think that's the real stuff that will bring actual, tangible, and felt change on the ground to protect and save lives. Because right now we really need to protect and save lives. And then another is also, checking in on the students that did the mobilizing, making sure they're okay. Looking at your media organizations, asking them to cover better. And that doesn't just mean covering what is happening here. That is covering what your policymakers, your local policymakers are saying or not saying, and what they're doing under the table. What kind of deals they're doing with Israel and other repressive regimes that we're seeing. Things like that. These kinds of actions, ones that focus on solidarity, exposing, and confrontation, I think is really important right now. And
it reminds me of a conversation that we had together in March with someone that we cannot name, but who said that injustice persists as long as a majority benefits from it. So there's a majority that has a reason to defend the status quo still. So of course it's risky then to make them feel like you're taking that away from them. Whereas I think you're not, because it's not good for anyone to commit injustice or violence. And the cost is not immediate, but you see many consequences, like the international justice system just crumbling. Things that protect us all are crumbling because of the complicity, because of the impunity with which this can all be done. I think in the end, also the people that may feel like it's not yet harming them are really at risk.
Yeah. Everyone is at risk. And I think that injustice persists as long as the majority doesn't do something, not necessarily benefits from it. I don't think the majority is benefiting from the kind of injustices that are happening. I think quite the contrary. It's a few that benefit from it and that require it and need it. But it is the majority that allows it and sustains it, either by staying idle and not doing anything, or by justifying it and rationalizing it, right? Or again, by feeling this defeatist mentality, like, what do I do? What can I do? What will I do that will change this?
Mariam, thank you for taking the time to, explain to us what's happening in this hectic period. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the readers and listeners also do.
Thank you for having me and asking the questions.